Thank you. Thank you, Martin. I now know who slipped that note under my door last night. But I really appreciate that. It's totally exaggerated, and if you listen carefully to Martin, you'll understand it's not who you know, it's whose brother you know. I had an epiphany last night, but first I should mention that when I spoke at the very first music exchange, my topic was the coming revolution in music. And my topic on the 15th music exchange was also going to be the coming revolution in music, because there's always a revolution coming in music. But something happened. I had this presentation showing the possibilities in music production, in music promotion, in engagement with fans. It wasn't just about AI making music for you. And then I came across a post on Facebook by a Cape Townian writer by the name of Herman Lateghan. I don't know if any of you know him, a real maverick, does not toe the line. But he posted something that he came across, and he said he had to Google it to make sure it was true. And I read this post, and it completely flipped my mind, and I trashed my presentation. And when I got into my hotel room last night after 10 o'clock, I began working on this new presentation, because I thought it was such an important message to share. And you'll excuse me if the presentation is a bit rough, because I didn't focus too much on the design aspect of it. I tried to get AI to design part of it. Didn't do a great job. But I'm going to introduce my topic by asking you, what is more human than inclusivity? Because as you know from the concept of Ubuntu in this country, I am because of you is basically the concept of Ubuntu. Inclusivity is as human as you can get, and it's as African as you can get as well. And what in music can be more human than making it accessible to everyone? So before giving you this insight, my personal insight into this concept, I want you to listen in your heads. Now, I didn't have time to compose a symphony for you, and I didn't have time to find a rights-free version of Beethoven's Ninth. And this is the Mzansi Philharmonic Orchestra performing in a movie that was released in July in South Africa, making Beethoven's Ninth Symphony a local concept. But I want you to listen to it in your head, but you don't have to listen to Beethoven's Ninth. What I want you to do is think of a piece of music that truly stirred you when you heard it, whether it was the first time or whether it was when you saw it live. For me, there are two that stand out in my life when I think of two pieces of music that stirred me, and I replay it in my head. The first time I heard Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run on radio, it shifted my consciousness about what rock music could be. And then when I had the privilege of watching Yuma Sakela perform live, and he performed one of his numbers called Stimela, and I had goosebumps. And I think back to that, and I still have goosebumps. So I want you to think back, or think of any song and listen to it in your head that gave you goosebumps. And just remember that feeling of goosebumps. I'll give you 10 seconds to think about it. One song. Now, that should give you a sense of how powerful music can be to the individual when they hear that music. And I'm going to give you someone's description when they first heard Beethoven's Ninth. Then all the instruments and voices together burst forth, an ocean of heavenly vibration, and died away like winds when the atom is spent, ending in a delicate shower of sweet notes. I've never been so enraptured before by a multitude of tone vibrations. Does anyone know who wrote that? Does anyone know what that person's role was? Music critic, maybe? A musician? A singer? A speaker? It was Helen Keller, a deaf person. And listen to this, or read this, because it seemed so impossible that she would have written this. As I listened with darkness and melody, shadow and sound filling all the room, I could not help remembering that the great composer who poured forth such a flood of sweetness into the world was deaf like myself. Beethoven had gone deaf by the time he composed his Ninth Symphony. And Helen Keller wrote that in a letter after a family member got her to place her hand on the naked speaker of a radio. They uncovered the radio, put her hand on the diaphragm of the speaker, and she listened to the music with her hand. That was March 1924. In my mind, that was a pivotal moment in the history of music appreciation, because it was the first time that someone exhibited or reported or stated an appreciation of music that was on such a tactile level, but in also such incredible words, because she was a brilliant writer as well. But while the New York Symphony Orchestra greatly appreciated this, and that letter has been preserved for posterity, the world moved on, because music and making music was about making money. I'll just very quickly show you what she said about that experience. What was my amazement to discover that I could feel not only the vibration, but also the impassioned rhythm, the throb, and the urge of the music. So it's not just, if any of you ever saw the movie Children of a Lesser God, where the lead actress listens to the music on the floor as it vibrates from the piano. But it's not just about the vibration. It's about so much more. She marveled at the power of his quenchless spirit. And these incredible words, feeling with my hand the magnificent symphony which broke like a sea upon the silent shores of his soul and mine. This music reaches the soul if people can feel the music physically. So your obvious question is, what does that have to do with AI? So let's first have a brief overview of understanding the deaf community and music. And the next few slides, I actually asked Copilot to create for me, because PowerPoint now is integrated with Copilot, and you can go into PowerPoint and hit Copilot, and it'll ask you, do you want me to create a presentation for you? And you say yes, and you can choose the theme you want. You give it a topic first, and then you choose the color scheme or the theme, and then it'll produce anything from 16 to 40 slides on your topic that you can then go and present. So unashamedly, the next 6 slides or so are produced by AI. But the beauty of AI and the power of AI is that it has access to all the world's published knowledge that is publicly accessible on the internet. So it can distill it for you into an understanding of any topic. DJ Easy was telling me earlier about how he used Notebook LM, the Google tool that anyone can get access to create a podcast on a topic that he assumed Google knew nothing about. But he created a podcast of 2 people debating MEX25 as if they were live commentators. So this is what Copilot gave me. Exploring deaf cultures and perspectives on music. I won't read it all to you, but it talks about visual and tactile emphasis, appreciation of music differently, and alternative music engagement. Traditional approaches for accessibility are sign language interpretation, captioning of lyrics, and then vibration-based devices. So that basic form of tactile experience where you just feel the vibrations. But there are challenges, and I was quite impressed that Copilot came up with this as well. Lack of real-time interpretation, limited access to the tactile elements, and difficulty experiencing rhythm and emotion. And that is a critical one, because through non-auditory senses, it remains a significant challenge, of course. So let's look at the role of AI in music accessibility. And look at an overview of AI technologies in music. We have machine learning in music, algorithms that analyze musical patterns and structure for enhanced music creation and recommendation. And that would have been what would have been part of my talk on the coming revolution in music as a result of AI. Natural language processing interprets and translates music into accessible formats for diverse audiences. So it's not just about your ability to hear it, but also your ability to understand it. And then computer vision applications which detect rhythms and musical gestures and then turn that into a visual experience. And these are some of the AI-driven tools for music interpretation and transformation: visual animations, tactile feedback generation, and sign language interpretation. And then there are haptic and tactile feedback systems powered by AI. The algorithm transforms vibrations into tactile feedback, and deaf users can experience music through customizable and nuanced tactile sensations. That is all fairly well known. In terms of lyrics and rhythm, it enabled instant sign language interpretation. AI-generated sign language improves deaf audiences' understanding of music, lyrics, and rhythm. And just this year, we have seen Google embark on a massive project to bring, at first, American Sign Language to AI. And AI can now talk in sign language as well. Next year, who knows what else it will make possible. And then sign language performances powered by AI help deaf audiences emotionally connect with music. That was not possible before this year. Suddenly, that becomes possible. There are ethical considerations. Anyone developing any of these kinds of tools or experiences must collaborate actively with deaf users to ensure that it addresses unique needs. There has to be cultural respect and privacy. You have to respect deaf culture, and then you have to avoid bias and exclusion through ethical design. And these are all topics that individually you can ask Copilot or Gemini or ChatGPT to elaborate on for you if you want to understand it better. But let's come back to the human in the loop, which is still the topic of my presentation today, but it's a very different kind of loop to what you may have had in mind. Imagine making Spotify's entire library. How many songs on Spotify, Martin?
Well, there are 100,000 a day being uploaded, so who knows? You would know.
I lost count. I tried. But imagine making that vast library accessible in ways that Beethoven himself might have imagined to have experienced once he went deaf. How? Well, subwoofers, vibrating floors, haptic devices that make rhythms and bass lines tangible. Copilot even can tell you that. Body-based listening. Many deaf musicians like Evelyn Glennie speak about hearing through their whole body, recalling exactly what Helen Keller's experience was 101 years ago. And Spotify music can be felt in the same way. And these are some of the ways that it can be done. Real-time conversion of Spotify tracks into a vibration score across multiple actuators. So you can map different body parts to different kinds of instruments and different kinds of sounds, from bass and treble to drums. The way Keller described it is how you could adapt songs on Spotify if Spotify enabled it. And then music to visual AI. I'm not a huge fan of that because I think that, in a sense, almost camouflages the inaccessibility of the music by making it look like it's accessible. But it is an option. And then this is the significant thing that no one has done yet, and that is to use AI to learn how each individual best perceives rhythm and melody, whether it's through their hands, arms, torso, or visuals, and then optimize translations for that mode. AI can recognize and then recompose music in tactile-friendly arrangements without losing the essence of the piece, but also making it meaningful to the individual based on how they best experience it. This is my proposal for a concept for Spotify and AI accessibility. First, bring in a multi-sensory translation engine. I'm not going to read this to you. If you want a copy of this presentation, I'm very happy to share it. But AI-driven separation, mapping to the senses, haptics, visuals, and then even temperature or airflow cues to mark crescendos or shifts in the music. So even the pace of the music and the way that pace changes can be captured in a tactile way. Personalized vibration profiles. This is the most complex of all, but it's now possible. AI can learn from user feedback. Where do they feel the violins better? In their fingertips? In their toes? Do they prefer drum beats in their torso? In their feet? And over time, the system then customizes the vibration score for each person, a unique sensory map of music, and it's tuned to their individual bodies. It sounds like science fiction, but the technology is now here. Real-time visualization. If this is how you want to make that music accessible, you create an on-screen display that shows flowing shapes and colors that pulses with the rhythm and harmony. So users can actually see the chord changes and dynamics as they happen, and they can mentally map that to what they are feeling haptically. And then there are also optional immersive visuals that make this kind of content more accessible. Then a social layer can be added as well. Friends listening together, sharing the same vibration score, or sharing their personalized vibration score with somebody else to see how they respond to it, and they in turn can share their own personalized vibration score. And for deaf and hearing people in the same room, it bridges the sensory experience, so everyone shares the same music, although in different modalities. There are numerous creative extensions, and these are just some examples. Adaptive remixes, alternative versions of songs optimized for haptics, mood tagging. AI can annotate a track with tactile descriptors as opposed to the textual layer that you currently have that explains what the song is about or shares the lyrics with you and the like. The first part of building this is the most difficult, and that is if you want to create hardware like haptic suits or sub-pack chairs, bone conduction headphones, phone vibration motors. Some of this already exists. A smartphone already has incredible vibration capabilities, and that vibration can be tuned. Does anyone here use Duolingo, for example? Anyone use Duolingo to learn languages? You'll know that when you hit a certain score, or when you finish some lessons, or when you reach your 1,000 days or whatever it might be of a long streak, then it comes up with these incredible vibrations that makes it feel like your phone is about to explode. And Duolingo has found a way to fine-tune the vibration settings of phones that gives you effects that you didn't know your phone actually had. And there's a lot more of that capability built into the phone. So even the phone itself becomes a vibration motor. And then earbuds and earpods are more and more introducing bone conduction into them. So standard tools that we all have access to can be built into this process. And then you can develop software that plugs into Spotify via its API to do real-time stem separation and feed outputs to haptics or visuals. If Spotify doesn't do it themselves, it's possible for a developer to create that. And then AI's role becomes not translation, but personalization. It learns the sensory vocabulary of the individual and not of the music industry. It would mean that deaf individuals could experience music structure and emotions with much greater nuance. Mixed ability audiences could share the experience, And artists could compose with haptics in mind. And this is where many of the people in this room could start thinking about how they think about composing their music. So this is what the user journey would look like if you were able to create a haptic Spotify layer for deaf people. First, the user would open Spotify, select, for example, Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, the legendary Karajan recording, or any other piece of music. Yuma Sekela Stimela. Instead of pressing play directly, they open it through the AI Accessibility Companion app. That's just a made-up name for it. You can call it anything, which links to Spotify via this API. AI then prepares a sensory score. It runs stem separation, voices are isolated in one layer, drums, strings, etc. separated cleanly, and then the AI translates these into multi-sensory channels, and that becomes the vibration score, which can sit alongside a visual symphony. I hope I didn't activate someone's Gemini assistant there. If you want to go for the haptic experience, these are some of the options. A haptic vest, and there are ones available for those who want to experience it, or wristbands. Low frequency bass, for example, can rumble across the chest and back. Drums and percussion tap on the wrists and ankles. Violins and voices shimmer as lighter high frequency pulses across the upper chest or arms. The AI adjusts the intensity to prevent overload, keeping the sensations balanced. Now this is obviously the Rolls-Royce experience because these haptic vests aren't expensive, but it shows what's possible. And we are also seeing, for example, in the field of virtual reality, that the equipment and the accessories are becoming more accessible every year. An example is Facebook's new Meta virtual reality glasses come with a wristband. Sorry, they're smart glasses, come with a wristband that allows you, to gesture to create movement within your field of vision. Now that kind of technology is suddenly a consumer item. It's not high-end technology like a haptic vest. And that can be adapted in the coming years for that tactile experience as well. The visual experience can be anything from a color wave field on a tablet to visuals being synchronized in real time so that crescendos become light storms and soft passages become gentle patterns. Any combination of visual pattern that you could imagine. And then personal adaptation is when the user gives feedback through simple gestures or voice commands. The user can actually instruct the app how it wants to experience it. More drums in hands, more bass in my feet, for example. And then AI learns their sensory map, and the AI adapts to the human. So it almost becomes AI in the loop as opposed to the human in the loop. And AI serves the human as opposed to the human serving the AI, as many people fear. Let's look at the finale of Ode to Joy. As the choir erupts, I'm not going to try to talk German, the user feels multi-layered waves through the body. Chest and torso trembles with bass and timpani. Arms tingle with violin harmonies. Hands pulse with the voices. And the AR visuals explode into color. And the AI ensures that each sensory channel converges into a unified emotional arc. Imagine that experience for someone who has not heard or felt music before. And then finally, the shared experience. If the user is with friends, they can experience the same symphony through their own chosen channels. All syncs, all streams, so that everyone is immersed in this, AI syncs all streams so that everyone is immersed in the same emotional journey, although with different senses. So in the same way that Helen Keller felt that ocean of heavenly vibration through her fingertips, the modern listener could experience it through their entire senses. The difference is that AI expands this possibility into a personalized and shareable art form, making Spotify's catalog universally accessible. And this is what it will look like on Spotify. I asked ChatGPT to take this argument and turn it into a Spotify interface to show the audience exactly how it becomes reality. You have track selection screen. You move from there to sensory calibration. Excuse my spelling errors. This was composed late last night. And then sensory calibration through the app. And then finally, you play the song and you experience it in that sensory way. Imagine having this on Spotify, making the music accessible to everybody. If ChatGPT could create this image for me, based on what I've fed into it, it could create the actual app as well, if you gave it the right instructions, and then convince Spotify to allow it to interface with their app. There is no reason why the hundreds of thousands of songs uploaded onto Spotify every day cannot be accessible to everyone. Thank you.
Ready to start. Arthur, thank you so much. Let's do it one more time. Arthur Goldstuck.
Can you join me on stage? Yeah, sure. I'm going to ask Arthur that you see on the stage next to John Cena. And then we're going to open the floor for questions, but while he does that, I think it's maybe a good idea for those of you who enjoy the talk to get a copy of this. If you don't know, this is the guy behind this book here. It's called The Hitchhiker's Guide to AI. And yeah, about 3 months ago, I got introduced by someone else to know your first reactions, first AI robots. But I think just from Arthur's talk, we know now that technology will evolve, but creativity remains human. So yeah, it's really up to us. So I think there's a roaming mic. If there are any questions, and then we take the right sort of picture, so let's see.
The first one is that you want to ask.
Yeah, Arthur, you come.
Yeah.
So,
Happy to help you.
So let's say, how do you know someone has a breath?
Okay, I'll just follow you.
They tell you, right? So I'm going to tell you I have iPhone, but only because I have this question. Because my wife knows Apple Music, and I don't for some reason. But when you were talking, you didn't even mention Apple. So is there a beef between Apple and you, or is it Spotify? Like, what's the thing? Because you just, I don't know, maybe you got paid by Spotify to do the talk, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know if anyone else has that question, but I just wanted to know why Spotify is Apple in a different park or what's going on now.
I've always felt that Apple is a walled garden, and they try and lock you into their products and services. And in South Africa, what you find, well, I'm going to ask this audience, how many of you have an iPhone? And how many of you have an Android phone? So even in this very connected audience, it's about, I'd say 2/3 are Android and 1/3 iPhone. If you talk to a high-end executive audience, it's about 3/4 iPhone. And the problem with that is that everyone who has an iPhone thinks everyone sees the world in the same way, and they imagine everyone else is like them, so everyone has iPhone. So executives think iPhone has almost a majority market share in this country. The reality is only 10% of South Africans have an iPhone. So for that reason, for this message to be accessible in this country, it can't be an Apple-oriented message. Otherwise, you're talking to the elite. And sorry, iPhone users are an elite of society. I won't say the elite, but they are an elite of society.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? There's one in front. Please put your hand up so I can see you. Maybe flip back. There you go.
My name is Ryan Swanholm. I represent Brino.com and also my entertainment business for Live. I'm the one who said the album killer, and it's interesting to note. I got a comment and a question. It's interesting to note that Beethoven was deaf when he wrote it, and eventually a deaf person experienced it. There's a group of my friends, they're drifted apart, but they refer to themselves as a deaf squad, and their hearing levels are different, and their experience of hearing is different. And some of them are completely deaf, and some of them are just slightly deaf.
That's a very important point, by the way, in terms of personalizing these kind of experiences.
And yes, and I want to comment on because if AI personalizes, then obviously it's based on the person's level of hearing. And what was interesting was they used to always want to go to a certain club which had a wooden dance floor, and the lights were always set on beat sync instead of the DJ tuning the lights, which everyone, the lights were always set on beat sync. So it was very accessible, music became accessible to them. But what I want to ask is, because technology is often, not always, but technology is often, and the best technology to make the inaccessible things accessible, it comes at a cost. It comes at a cost, and then also developers want to make a profit. Is there this is a concept, right?
Yes.
But would you say there is a financial motivation that would make somebody go and say, let's develop this thing just for the love of making it accessible, or will somebody actually will somebody be able to make money off it?
I believe there are enough people thinking about these issues who want to make a contribution without making money out of it. So I do believe that it can be done without a profit motive. But having said that, I do also believe that there is tremendous business to be made out of this kind of concept, if only through someone like Spotify or Apple Music licensing or paying a license to have this application connecting to their service through an API, and therefore increasing the number of streams that they're going to play. We know that it takes millions of streams to make any money out of these platforms, but we also know there are millions of people who benefit from it. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. My just trigger something in terms of using social capital, almost like
corporate social responsibility initiatives. Yeah. I think that's actually a very good point. It's something that corporates could sponsor as well, to show that they truly are committed in areas where they're not going to be making money from loyalty, let's say. Good point. You know, I was going to give a prize to the best question in the room, but I'm already going to give that prize. There may be better questions, but that was a super set of questions. I'd like to give you a copy of each of the
the book, I was wondering how much will this cost me?
Just a question. Okay.
No more copies.
My name is Milan. I sing. And my question is more around the AI rather than the sensory side of things. So as a vocalist, I've got a very, very vast taste. So I could kind of speak to a producer to go, you know what, like I really want a little bit of like Lana Del Rey, but combine it with a little bit of Shania Twain and then add a little bit of Amapiano. And I've had producers look at me like, going like, what on earth are you talking about? So I've actually found that by using music AI, and being able to give those prompts, I'm able to kind of generate something that's quite close to what I really like the sound of. And also in terms of the lyrics and being able to describe a storyline that I want and generate lyrics that kind of work with that music. So I've used that as part of my process, but obviously I haven't released anything or recreated anything, because then I would go into studio and I'd go, please recreate this track, let's redo the vocals on this, maybe let's change a couple of lyrics. But I just wanted to know, in terms of, firstly, whether or not that's something that is acceptable in the industry, firstly. Secondly, what are the implications from a royalty perspective and so forth? And I mean, is this the future of music? Yeah, because I mean, as a singer, and not playing an instrument and not being able to produce music, you find yourself at a like a big brick wall in terms of how to make your music a reality as an indie artist.
Martin, do we have half an hour?
We have a long lunch break.
Those are key questions. The first one, is it acceptable? It depends who you speak to. I was at a writers' event in Johannesburg yesterday where I happened to start chatting with a writer who didn't know me, didn't know what I'd written, asked me, what did you write? I said, Hitchhiker's Guide to AI. She said, AI, you're the enemy. And she began going off at me about how AI is trying to replace writers. And I said, wait, you don't even know how I use AI. So she said, tell me, did you use AI to write your book? Well, no, she didn't say that, that's other people asked. She said, do you use AI to write for you? I said, no, but I use AI to research for me. I use it to tell me what I'm missing. I ask it for case studies, I ask it for examples. So she said, so it's writing for you? I said, no. She said, why don't you use an encyclopedia? So she is so hooked on her issue against AI that she can't understand that it's actually doing the heavy lifting for you and not the creative work for you. So it depends very much who you speak to. How many of you here have used AI in creative pursuits? So it's definitely acceptable to half the room. How many of you who didn't put up your hands would use it if you were facing writer's block or producers or musical block? Quite a few. So how many of you would never use AI? Nobody. Because it's a switched on audience, one person here. But he probably has other reasons, I suspect. The point about that is the acceptability of it depends entirely on who you're speaking to and who is responding to the music and what their perception is of it. If you are wholesale stealing someone's sound or someone's lyrics, then that's not acceptable. If you're using AI to produce the music entirely for you and you're uploading that as your music, that's not acceptable. But that's plain ethics. It's not about what is right or wrong in AI, it's about general ethics in creativity. However, the question then is, your second question was, you had 3 questions. If it's acceptable?
So the second one is around royalties.
Implications.
Royalties, yeah. So the royalty implications are quite complex, and quite coincidentally, Charles, that Martin was talking about earlier, has just produced an academic paper. We both happen to be enrolled at Wits University to do PhDs on different aspects of AI, and his is on music rights and AI. And it's a very complex area, it's a complex PhD, and he's doing it through a series of papers. And the first paper has just been published, and it's already making waves. So I suggest download that, just do a search on Charles Goldstuck, or ask Martin to send you the link.
It's eye-watering reading, and so is the book. Eye-watering.
Thanks.
What's the name of the article?
Just look for Charles Goldstuck and AI and music rights, and it will take you there. I can't remember the full name of the paper, but Martin can also share the link to that paper. So download that, it will give you deep insights into what the debate actually is and what he recommends as a solution and a structure for it. But what he is arguing basically is that there has to be an agreement between the creators of the AI platforms and the creator community on how to share royalties, rights, and the like. But it won't affect you personally using the AI. It will affect Suno, for example. If you use Suno, Suno will have to come to a royalty agreement with the community as a whole, or the industry bodies and the like. The third question, I forget what the third question was, but I know the answer is. The,
I did not answer because I've got the question too.
because that was the first thing I was thinking while you were talking, is that what AI now makes possible in terms of music production, and exactly what you are talking about, is it allows you to achieve the vision you have for the music that's in your head, but you don't have the production resources or the ability to actually actuate that vision. So the Beatles had the genius of McCartney and Lennon and George Martin in the studio to revolutionize the way music was produced back then. We don't all have Lennon, McCartney and George Martin in the room with us. We have Martin Myers, who can guide you in some of those directions. But AI suddenly gives us that power if we have the vision to explore tools that can actuate that vision. And I think that is one of the great roles. That's what I would have spoken about in my original talk, is the role of AI in allowing us to achieve the vision that's locked in our heads.
Thank you. Do we have one more question? No? Oh, two? Wow, okay. I think we'll take these two and then we'll have Arthur later.
Hello sir, my name is Liam. I'm an upcoming artist. I was recently approached by someone who wanted me to perform their music or record their music that they had. And they gave me a demo of it, but it was done completely by AI. And the first time I listened to it, I didn't know that. So I told him like, yo, you have a good voice, you might as well do it on your own. It sounded better than myself. And then he told me afterwards, it's AI. And I was like, yo, I actually felt that music. And that kind of scared me in a sense, in the fact that I felt sort of something that was, I felt something without knowing that it was completely computer generated. So I want to get your opinion on what do you think is the extent of the threat that AI really does pose to music in general, based on that?
I will not downplay the threat, and I cannot overstate how big that threat is if it's not dealt with in the early stages. So AI has got this incredible power to change the way we produce music and the way we experience music, as I was discussing earlier. But it also has the power to displace music. I'm not saying replace music, but displace it. So the idea that 100,000 songs are being uploaded to Spotify every day is scary, because probably 90% of those are AI generated. So it's not that whether an AI song is better than a Beethoven or Hugh Masekela composition. The question is whether, because there is so much of it, people won't find the Beethovens or Masekelas of tomorrow. The people won't hear them because there's too much AI schlock, as they call it, being uploaded. So that puts a responsibility on the platforms like Spotify and Apple and Deezer and all the others to, in fact, filter out AI-generated music, which is difficult, but it can be done, and at this stage it can be done. In the future, as AI becomes better, it might become more complicated, but then the ability to pick up AI production will also become better over time. So I do believe that there should be an active effort to filter out pure AI production from music platforms.
Hello, Jefferson. We have one more from there.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Arthur. I am the president of Cape Council Collective. I am also honored to serve next to the sibling of Goldstuck.
My sister Daphne is also in the room. It's also your sister, you know.
Yeah, I'm privileged. I just want to share something. There was a movie released late 80s, and I think Richard Dreyfuss is the main actor in that movie, where he plays a music teacher, and then he was battling with his wife that he would like to showcase his own music compositions. But what was significant about that movie is that the gentleman spoke about the lights and the vibration on the wooden floor, is that for the deaf audience, he had a panel of lights showing the different moods of the music that he produced. Okay, so sir, you depict that AI will enhance the hearing for the deaf people. Now, I work with autistic children. I teach them music. And before I was approached by the CEO of the CREF if I can teach autistic kids. And I said, I don't know. So I've done some little research. How do you teach an autistic child of 9 years old that's attention span is all over the place? I tell the learner, play C, and the learner plays C, but after that, the learner plays whatever he sees. So my question is, oh, you get it? So my question is, because I couldn't find any tangible information, how do you teach an autistic child a musical instrument? Because with a guitar, it's difficult to get that child sitting still with the guitar. You have to have a metal guitar, otherwise they will break it. So is there anything that AI can maybe upload stuff so that for the next generation of people on the spectrum? Thank you.
It's also an excellent question, and I can't answer it directly and specifically, but what I can tell you is that any information that is publicly available and is on the internet, that has ever been placed on the internet, is available to AI. So the search that you would have done, maybe a Google search or something, may have surfaced some very superficial information. But now you can go to, again, going back to Notebook LM, you can go to Notebook LM and you can ask it to actually create a course for you on exactly how to do this. And it will draw in all the best practice information. Remember, you're not asking for historical facts where it might make it up. You're asking for information, guidance, etc. that is all available online. And you wouldn't find much misinformation except on what causes autism. Don't ask that, because it's going to start going into the Trump rabbit hole. But in terms of how to teach children on the spectrum, AI is going to be such a powerful tool for you that you can draw on and keep drawing on and keep building on. You could actually build, you could yourself use AI to build a course that other people could also present and deliver to children on the spectrum.
Thank you. We've got one last question.
Sorry. I think we had similar questions with the last questions were concerned. My question is, if you give the input to AI to write a song for you, you give the theme, you give the rhythm, you give the beat, everything. They create a great song for you. Let's say I don't use any of the stems, I recreate that, I change the words a bit. Do I, or can I then own it? Without and just use AI as a guide.
Yeah, that's actually a good use case. You've got writer's block, you want to create your own songs, but you're not getting very far with it. You ask AI to create it for you and you think, okay, that's close, I'll work with that. And then you recreate it, but with your own sensibilities, your own interpretation almost, and your own voice. And I don't just mean your singing voice, I'm talking about your the voice of your heart as well, and how you want to hear it. But it's giving you that basis. It's like asking, for a writer, it's like asking AI to write a rough draft of an article about a subject that you just cannot get to grips with. And it'll give you a fantastic rough draft, and then you can start writing around that. A lot of writers actually work that way. They write around the draft, but using their own words. And some phrases they'll still capture from the draft. It's not like they're not allowed to use the draft. And it becomes their own work. And that becomes your own work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's our last question, but before I let you get on stage, I wanted to check, do you have like a favorite platform? Which one's better for you to use? Because I think when I started, I saw something, I think on one of the social media platforms, said, spend 20 minutes on this and your life will change, blah, blah, blah. And then my own journey, I think I used an Android phone for a couple of days and it was the Gemini thing, but then ChatGPT became like the favorite one, which I now use every single day. And I think also to just catch on what you were saying, for me, sometimes if I wanted to just articulate better, so if I'm saying, can you come join me for lunch tomorrow, this thing's going to invite you better. So it just does that, but it's still me asking you to come. And I think at the time, like 3 months ago, I was part of people saying, no, you're not doing that, it's lazy, the machine is doing the work for you, but it's not. So, but I wanted to ask you the favorite platform, is there one? So,
an AI platform.
Yeah.
So I have a preferred platform. I wouldn't call it the favorite because different platforms have got different strengths. So basic ChatGPT is great for writing a diplomatic email to someone that you want to tell them to go to hell, but in a way that they thank you. And you can actually tell. I asked ChatGPT yesterday to give me a diplomatic phrasing to tell someone they're trying to teach their granny to suck eggs. And gave me a wonderfully diplomatic response, so the person doesn't even know I'm insulting them. But so any of the AI platforms will do that, and the free ChatGPT is good enough for that. As far as the free platforms go, though, I think Claude from Anthropic is probably the best, and even the basic paid version, Claude is probably the best. So if you're going to pay for AI monthly subscription, then Claude has been shown to be superior in both in the content it creates, but also in its ability to avoid hallucination. Hallucination, for those who don't know, is when AI makes up facts. And ChatGPT is notorious for that, so is Microsoft Copilot. What I was asking Copilot to do in the middle of this presentation was not to produce facts, but to create an overview of an issue, and it's very good at that. Most AI is good at that. But so Claude, generally speaking, is the superior text generation tool. But within paid ChatGPT, there are now numerous what they call agents that will do specific things exceptionally well. And for a researcher, and someone wanting to research anything, and an example that I used this week in front of a live audience was to research market analysis of different investments in traditional shares, locally, internationally, and then comparing it to what they call alternative asset classes, like single malt whiskey, rare aged single malt whiskey. I built that into it. Then I built collectible comic books into it, and was able to give an in-depth analysis of whiskey versus comics versus mining shares versus Nvidia shares, for example. A 1-year horizon and a 10-year horizon. So the free versions can do that, but you can't trust them because they'll make up a lot of their facts. Within paid ChatGPT, there's this tool for competitive and market analysis, it's called, which is, because it's paid for and because it's been developed as on top of ChatGPT and not inside ChatGPT, its facts are reliable. It gives you citations and references that you can go to confirm where it got that information from, and it will give you a 30-page report that will take a conventional analyst or researcher 2 weeks to do, and will do it for you in 2 minutes and 20 seconds, which is how long it took in front of a live audience this week. So I'm not saying that is the tool, that's my favorite as such, but my favorite is that within ChatGPT you have these agents that are incredibly powerful at specific purposes. And from that point of view, ChatGPT is my preferred platform. I wouldn't call it favorite because next month there might be another preferred platform.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, Arthur Goldstuck.